have information about the Wi-Fi. It is an easy, no password necessary UAS guest Wi-Fi. There's also a QR code. I don't know about you, sometimes I forget what's coming next. If you use this QR code, it will link you immediately to the virtual agenda for what we have in store over the next day and a half. A couple housekeeping items for everyone as well for the next couple days. We have 4 restrooms at your easy disposal. There are 2 downstairs, 2 upstairs, and there's even a few extra if you go down the hall past the Innovation Lounge. You'll find a few more. Also, in the event of an emergency, I want to point out our emergency exits are behind us past the AV table right over there. So keep that in mind. You also all have one of these around your neck. That's Hope. In it, you have a little card. Let's talk a little bit about the pitch contest. In your badge, you'll find you all have 1 complimentary vote. You can also buy additional votes during the networking break at the registration table up in the lounge. Now, everyone knows the pitch contest is a conference favorite for a lot of us, and trust me, don't sell yourself short. You'll want multiple votes to support all of these great businesses that you'll be hearing from. Also, the Local Frequency app. Hopefully you've all heard of it. It is an app-based loyalty and rewards program that is exclusive to local businesses. It was started here in Juneau by the Juneau Economic Development Council and has since expanded to Petersburg and Haines. And what the app does is it encourages shoppers to go to locally owned businesses and rewards those shoppers with cashback incentives and special offers. So again, in the back of your badge, I won't pull it out this time, you have received a $10 local frequency gift card. So you can use this card at any number of local businesses around Juneau, or you can use it at our after party tomorrow at the Forbidden Peak Brewery, or even to buy that extra pitch contest vote. So if you have any questions about it or want help downloading it, there is a local frequency table, again, upstairs in the lounge. So download it now to support your local businesses. Well, I think it's time to officially kick off the summit. Please welcome me with a traditional welcome of this land. We're going to give our attention to the 2nd to 5th grade students of the Juneau, Alaska Music Matters Tlingit Dance and Drumming Class After School Program at the Sit'Eetí Shaanáx Elementary School or Glacier Valley Elementary School. Welcome.
What clan is he?
What's the title of the song? And his Lingít name is? What's his Lingít name? What's his English name?
This is a new song that these friends are performing. One of their first times that this song has been performed. And the object of our dance is to connect with friends, to connect with them, even though there's space between us. So when you see some of these friends out here, they can't actually give you their hand, but they can connect with you like this. Just like this. Can we, our friends, our dancers, show how they'll connect with you? And maybe you can reciprocate something on their face, something in their hands, and this kind of holding each other up. You'll see them wishing to connect with you and to hold each other up. And you might be able to mirror their emotion. All right. Here we go, friends. Way away. Okay. Okay. So all of my friends reaching out. Here we go. Hundejin Ahone. Hundejin Ahone. So this is when you might be able to guide them up. Can you stand up to where you're at? And a real basic way of receiving a song like this is to hold your hands out, just with your palms up. And you can keep the beat this way. You see how adults can also learn to. And maybe if you smile with them just right, they might shake their hands back to you. Good cheek. Here we go. And once again. We're going to reposition ourselves for our exit, and as we do, Dr. Lord. services with these kids.
Yay. Goodness, Cheesh. We are so excited. This is the first Tlingit dance and drumming group we've had that started in January, and we are just want to thank the university, JEDC, for inviting us to open up and welcome you onto Tlingit. This university has been very supportive of all of us learning the Tlingit language. And 18 of our staff, JAMM and Sit'Eetí Shaanáx teachers, have taken beginning Tlingit, and I hope that you all do. Living on this land, to be able to know how to read the language, to speak the language, we are just honored to be able to do that and to share that with our children. So we are using music, JAMM, to help teach a tonal language. All kindergartners through second grade get at least 90 minutes of Tlingit language learning through music. So you'll see all of our partners on the way out, because I know I'm a little nervous and want to make sure I remember everyone, but this Dekik Uchgai shot are those roots that hold us up. And there are so many partners that are contributing to this program to help hold up our children, our staff, and this beautiful culture and language. Ganesh Cheesh. The title of the song is? What's your singing name? Dach Ach. What planet is she? Dahlahani. That's cheese. Ah!
Gunashtish to our dancers. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And now we have some welcoming remarks from Senator Lisa Murkowski.
Well, hi there, and welcome to the Innovation Summit. I'm really glad to know that all of you are in Juneau. They're engaging in this space. And know that as you work together to innovate and inspire, I'm doing what I can to make sure that Alaska is the place that it can happen. So I'm just going to ask you, help me. I'm interested in hearing from you about what ideas, what policies can really help Alaska grow. I'm working on legislation to help capitalize on some of the cutting-edge ideas that we see coming out of our state. And this includes my Blue Globe Act to help support Alaska's growing blue economy, allowing our coastal communities to invest in technology innovations and protect our oceans while spurring economic development. I think its passage will pair nicely with the work that I'm doing to promote a more vibrant mariculture industry in the region. Resilience is really a word that comes to mind when I think of Alaskans. We face a lot of headwinds with our economy, but you can't be resilient if you just respond in the same old way. Innovation is our key. It is our future. So your theme, Building Alaska's Capacity Through Purpose and Shared Value, reminds us that it really comes about, innovation really comes about because of collaboration and cooperation, and we should always work to focus on those things that bring us together. Certainly, from my perspective, the most productive and consequential legislative proposals that I've been part of, they were successful when both sides came together, like we did with the bipartisan infrastructure legislation. Purpose-driven action to work toward a shared goal is the very definition of bipartisanship. So I hope that all of the perspectives that you hear during this summit really challenge you to think outside the box, to create lasting, resilient solutions that tackle not just Alaska's and the nation's problems, but the world's as well. It's a big order, but you can do it. Have a great summit.
Awesome. Well, thank you to Senator Murkowski, and another big thanks to the wonderful performance put on by our JAMM Lingít dance and drumming class. So Gunashtish again. And of course, I want to take this opportunity to thank the sponsors of this year's Innovation Summit. Thank you, of course, to the University of Alaska Southeast for hosting the Innovation Summit on the very picturesque wintry campus this year. And of course, thanks to our platinum sponsors, Sealaska and Alaska Airlines, for helping make the summit happen year after year. And a special thank you to this year's main stage sponsor, Upskilled Evolution. They are an Alaska recruitment and staffing agency that focuses on building employment by providing training and skills for those looking for jobs and connecting them with the right fit businesses and careers. They were our pitch contestant and startup in January 2022, and now look, they're our main stage sponsor in 2023. It's just the most amazing example of what you can gain from attending the Innovation Summit. So thanks again to them. I also want to welcome our speakers up here on stage. We're going to get comfortable. And anybody up here, we do have additional seating down here. If you want to come and make yourself comfortable, don't worry. Not interrupting yet. Thank you so much. Now I'm going to introduce our first live speaker of the summit, and that's Carey, the UAS Chancellor. Dr. Carey serves as the Chancellor at the University of Alaska Southeast, where she provides strategic leadership in fulfilling the UAS mission. She has served in many capacities over her career, working to ensure social justice for underrepresented groups in educational settings. Chancellor Carey has a bachelor's degree in psychology from San Diego State University, a master's degree in school psychology from the University of Nevada, and a PhD in school psychology from the University of Cincinnati. So please join me in welcoming Chancellor Carey.
Thank you so much. Thank you to the wonderful dancers. And I would like to start out with a land acknowledgement. Our campuses reside on the unceded territories of the Akwán, the Tontaquán, and the Sit'Eetí on Lingít Ani, also known as Juneau, Ketchikan, and Sitka, Alaska. We acknowledge that Tlingit peoples have been stewards of this land on which we work and reside since time immemorial, and we are grateful for that stewardship and incredible care. We also recognize that our campuses are adjacent to the ancestral home of the Haidas and the Tsimshian, and we commit to serving their peoples with equity and care. We recognize the series of unjust actions that attempted to remove them from their land, which includes forced relocations and the burning of villages. We honor the relationships that exist between the Tlingit, the Haidas, and the Tsimshian peoples, and their sovereign relationships to the land, their languages, their ancestors, and future generations. We aspire to work toward healing and liberation, recognizing our paths are intertwined in the complex histories of colonization in Alaska. And we acknowledge that we arrived here by listening to the people's elders and their lessons from the past, and these stories carry us as we weave a healthier world for future generations. I welcome you to our beautiful campus. I hope you got a tour this morning. If you did not, please feel free to wander around. We're not a very big campus. Auk Lake is just right back there, and it's gorgeous. And on some days, you can even see the glacier. So it's really, really a wonderful place to be. We have done a lot of work here at the University of Alaska Southeast related to Indigenous programs. As you heard earlier, we now offer Tlingit and Haida in for non-credit, and those classes are free. And we are full. It's wonderful. We also offer form line and Alaska Native carving, and we're looking to grow to weaving and to beading. So we have a lot going on here at the university. We do a lot of work with workforce as well. We have a number of programs down at our Technical Education Center, focusing on mining, on welding, on diesel tech, CNAs, and we really try to make sure that our students are contributing to the economy of Southeast Alaska. And finally, as you probably know, I will be retiring on June 30. I love UAS, and I will continue to live in Juneau, and I will continue to be involved with this campus. But we're going to have a wonderful new chancellor, and her name is Dr. Aparna Palmer. She's coming to us from Colorado, and we're very excited for her to come to campus. So there's a lot of things happening on our campus, and when we get a chance, I can tell you more about those things. So now I would like to introduce Joe Nelson.
Trying to see where this feedback is coming from here. Well, I am pinch hitting, is what they call it, somewhere else in the world here. I didn't wake up this morning for this presentation, this talk, this half-hour presentation I'm going to give you. But I did make it, build it into my agenda as I was driving out here. President Peterson, I think, is on your agenda. President Peterson is a good partner. My name is Joe Nelson. I'm chairman at Sealaska. I've spent a lot of years out here at this campus here, and got the call to give just to help on the welcome. And I don't think I can do any better though than the gift that you all had with the young people. Those you heard 3 songs. Those 3 songs were recently created songs, and we're talking about creating things and moving forward, and just using our own ingenuity. And these are all things that are intuitive to Native people that we've always had. And you go back 10, even just 10 years ago, definitely 20 years ago, definitely 30 years ago, there was not as much creation happening of our ancient ways. We were hanging on to things, and things were moving along, but we're moving into a whole new era here, and it is a big part, because of Chancellor Carey's leadership and others, to go ahead and lean into indigenous thinking, indigenous people, indigenous ways of knowing, ancient things that have held the world together for thousands of years. The world's screaming for it right now, and all of you know that. And it's this awakening that is happening in the Western world to say we have to do something differently. And as Native people, it's like, yeah, fall back in line with our native values, which have always had balance and reciprocity built into us. How many folks here were, well, I'm going to go in there. I'm going to keep it brief. The joke I was going to make, is that some of us have always been here, and there's like 120,000 of us that have always been here for thousands and thousands of years in Alaska with the native values, but we're all a relationship-based people, a collectivist people that are always thinking about our grandkids on everything, every decision we make. We're not thinking about our immediate quarterly returns. We're not thinking about the payroll necessarily or whatever the issue is of the day. When we're making our decisions every day, we're thinking about our grandkids, and if they're able to hang on to the way of life that our grandparents had, that's our job, to make sure that we're able to maintain some of that, and hopefully the core part of that. So that's why the biggest gift here was the young people that were, with the whole school, embracing the languages, especially when you think about 50 years ago. These schools were created to stomp out our languages. They were created to create a bunch of drones, a bunch of, we know the whole colonization and the trauma we wrestle with. Well, it's things like this, and then bringing it to the university campus to try to tie it back together in a way that does embed this type of creativity and business world and the ingenuity, the thinking, along with our faculty members, a lot of them who show up for their first time in Alaska with a fresh PhD, knowing this much about the native people of this place. And there's these experts in an ivory tower that's this tall, but it's about this wide, because they're experts in something that they don't have a clue about the place or the people. And the thing we have going here is the people and the community. So I really am applauding the fact that all of you are engaging, and then that you're leading with our young people and the languages being such a powerful thing, because it used to be an enrollment struggle years ago, but now it's actually a driver, because people actually want to move beyond the land acknowledgement and have a little deeper understanding, and embed those values into your businesses, into your way of doing business, because entrepreneurs cannot survive alone. You have to be able to be effective in communicating and connecting, and native people do that because it's embedded in us. It's our competitive advantage. We're all related. Some of you just don't know it yet. So welcome. I'm Joe, chairman at Sealaska. President Peterson is a great friend. He wasn't able to be here. I am a tribal member of Clinton Haida and Yaktak Lincoln Tribe, and Aquan is home. We, for many years, had a little stool here for Marie Olson, our elder, who lives right around the corner. But that stool was for her and me, but I guess they didn't bring it here today, but she usually would step up to give the opening welcome as one of our Aquan elders. So I'm looking around for other Aquan folks that are around. Just a genuine thank you to all the local native people, especially the Aquan, who've been great hosts to all of us for the years. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Joe. And I want to add, too, that Joe is a true advocate for younger voices in the boardroom. If you don't know, as part of his role with Sealaska, he helped establish the board youth advisor position in 2009, really empowering, the youth to make significant positive impacts within the community. That's just such a cool fact I wanted to share with you. So thanks again, Joe. For that. I want to introduce our next speaker. That's the JEDC board president, Garrett Schoenberger. Garrett's background is in real estate with more than 300 million in transaction volume over his career. He earned a degree in business from Arizona State University and currently runs a local private equity company, Alaska Legacy Partners. He currently serves, as I said, as the board president. So I'll welcome you up here, Garrett.
The picture looks a little different. I swear I'm not even recognized around town, but I guess a pandemic can do that. You start doing weird things and growing your hair out and such. Well, welcome to the Innovation Summit. This is one of my favorite times of the year. And first off, I want to thank the JEDC staff, because that's who's putting this on, and I get a little inside look behind the curtain at what does need to happen in order to put this event on, and it is a lot. And I can tell you there's a lot of sleepless nights leading up, the days leading up to it, just to make sure everything goes off without a hitch. So we see you, staff, and thank you very much for working so hard. It is really great to be at UAS. Every time I'm on this campus, it's like, seriously, like this is our campus with Auk Lake and just being on these lands. And it's a blessing. And that excites me because I think about the future of UAS, and we've worked really hard recently with JEDC and having more collaboration. JEDC put on the first Alaska Mariculture Conference last year right here at UAS, and that was a success. And what an awesome industry, a sustainable thing that we can do to help improve our economy. So we look forward to continuing to work with the university and the things that they're doing, like the marine science program being nationally ranked, the new natural sciences building being built right down on the water. There's exciting things happening. And the biggest thing that I see that Joe touched on is that what's really cool is the connection that they have with the Northwest Arts and Indigenous Arts, and the programming that they offer at the university is very unique and it's special. And I'm really excited about the future of that and seeing what Sealaska Heritage Institute and their arts campus that they're building out, and just the connectivity that is happening and the growth in that sector is exciting. The Innovation Summit is an annual ongoing effort to highlight important trends in business development that support long-term economic development. 10 years ago, we focused on shared value. And today we are revisiting that concept. Well, throughout this conference, we are revisiting that concept and the important work that has led to a deeper understanding of value and how that can actually help for-profit companies, and that there's a deeper understanding underneath this all in shared values. So we've lined up some excellent programming and speakers. And finally, as we launch into this conference and we get ready to hear these speakers, just a little reminder that an ounce of action is worth a ton of theory. And if you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to start something, start. The best way to start is to start. And there's no right time. And I think that gets missed sometimes. There's a little paralysis by analysis, or I need to plan it out or do something, and that's just an observation that as I get older and continue to learn in business, that one of the differentiators I've noticed is action, and just the act of acting. So the best time to start is to start now. And thank you very much for being here. And thank you to the university for letting us host this conference here.
Thank you, Garrett. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Joe. Thank you for Sierra and Andy for being our MCs, and the staff. Wow, amazing. We have 4 co-conspirators that I appreciate Garrett recognizing Gina, Daniel, Martine, and Caitlin in particular that led this. And one of them has been sick the last 2 weeks and isn't even here. and yet has been behind the scenes really making everything happen. Lots of people coming together. I'm Brian Holst. I'm the director of the Juneau Economic Development Council. And this is, like Garrett, this is one of my favorite times of the year because we get to talk about some really important topics and take action on those. We're going to learn from several people today. This is a hands-on event, so I want you to put your thinking caps on for a second, and I want you to think about innovation. Innovation. And I want you to meet the people at your table, and I want you to come up with the shortest definition you can about what describes or defines innovation. And if it's longer than 4 words, we don't want to hear it. All right? So that's your task. 4 words or less, define, describe innovation at your table, and introduce yourself to each other. Go ahead. Okay, you got 1 more minute. I'm going to come out and I'm going to hear some definitions of innovation. 4 words or less. Oh, you do? Okay, you're going to be first. You're going to be good. Can you guys answer the question? Hey, Steve.
All right.
So glad you're here.
Good. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Slide on in. Are we ready? I want to thank the Alaska Department of Workforce for their sponsorship and Plants Before Time. See those pretty plants in the middle? Okay, this table says they have a 4-word or less definition of innovation. Let's hear it.
Spark creativity into action.
Oh, nice. Very good. That's 4. That counts. Here we go. Oh, I got no takers there. How about over here? There we got one.
Forward collaboration with action.
Okay,
Okay, so confidently thinking, doing differently.
Doing differently.
I omitted an and.
Doesn't have to be grammatically correct.
So we have new solution, old problem.
Nice, I like it. Here we got one.
A response to an urgent need.
Response to an urgent need. Anyone else got something?
We do. We said it's making change.
Making change. 2 words. I think that gets a point.
Knowledge. Make it fresh.
That's more like a slogan.
New applications, old ideas.
Okay, all right, got the theme. Anyone else? Somebody's like dying? Yeah, there we go.
We were thinking ideas filling a gap.
Ideas filling a gap. All right. Well, Nikhil, are any of them correct? They all are correct. Those are great. All right. So I want everyone to stand up, please. Stand up, stand up. We're taking this action stuff seriously. All right. So stand up. Everybody standing? Okay. If this is your first Innovation Summit, so you can sit down. All right. Nice. Very good. Look around, look around. Good. If this is your second Innovation Summit, you can sit down. I love the, yeah. If this is your third Innovation Summit, sit down. How about your fifth? Oh, yeah, I see some. How about your seventh? Anyone left standing? Look who's standing. I love this. How about 10? Anyone's been to 10? Okay, who's been to all of them? I've been to all of them. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. And I really appreciate that there are some folks that come back for the ideas. We're always we try hard to market, and we may not be the best marketers, but I'm always pleased that we get this number of people, even before we announce the agenda, that just sign up. And we really admire you all for trusting us that we'll have something good for you. Okay, so I'm gonna say something I don't think you should expect to hear. Please pull out your phones. So we are going to, there's gonna be a few opportunities throughout that we're gonna engage you with some surveys. We want your responses. So poll everywhere is what we're using, but it's super simple and we have a text. So this is really our opportunity to make sure that everybody is aware of how to use this. And so here is our question. What do you hope to get out of the Innovation Summit this year? And the way it works is you, in the number part, where you the phone number, you put in 22333. And we'll take your time. We got to get this right because we're going to be using it later on, so this is the time to kind of figure this out. So the 2 part is 22333, 5 numbers. And then in the message, you have to put these 6 numbers first, then a space in the message. Otherwise, who knows where it goes. In this case, this part down here will always change. It's 120978 on this question, 120978 space, and then you write whatever response you want to write to our question, which is, what do you hope to get out of the Innovation Summit this year? Hey, 9, good. We're going to wait till this gets to 100. No, it's not very satisfying that way. Oh, good. We get quite a few responses. Just another second or two. It looks like enough people know how to do this so that if this comes up again, you'll have somebody near you that knows how this works. Okay, let's see the answers. Gabe. It's going to be hard to read 48 answers on. Here they come. I thought they were a little faster than that, but. Well, while we're getting inspired by all of the answers, let me just point out a couple of exciting things that we have. We have some great speakers for you today. We also have networking opportunities throughout. We have our reception area up there. It's behind the glass door. So if you need to take a break and talk to somebody, get some coffee, connect with our booths, please do so. We're going to have, additionally, we're going to have an arts program demonstration later this afternoon. We have innovation shorts as well. We have those today and tomorrow. So those are people that are your fellow attendees that have put forward a short, and we get an opportunity for them to present. Tonight we have the annual induction ceremony for the Alaska Innovators Hall of Fame. That happens right after our 5:15 reception. That'll start at 6 o'clock. And then tonight is also the pitch contest from 6:30. And please buy those votes. We crowdfund the prizes. You crowdfund the prizes. And so you get that one free vote that's a part of your registration, but you buy more votes. And then if you really believe in somebody, if you just want to spread the love, every penny that you spend on voting ends up in the pockets of the winning entrepreneurs. No, yeah. Very good. So let's get on to our first presentation today. We keep this, it's okay. Either way is good. Probably better you can listen to me so I can give Nikhil Bumb a proper introduction. He's the managing director of FSG, a global nonprofit that partners with foundations and corporations on strategies for social change. Nikhil helps lead FSG's work with corporations on integrating social and environmental change into enterprise strategy through shared value and purpose. Nikhil co-authored the Purpose Playbook, a guide to help companies become more resilient and competitive by becoming purpose-driven. As Garrett mentioned, FSG was present at the Innovation Summit about 10 years ago to talk about shared value, and we're really fortunate to have them back. It was fun to take Nikhil and I spent a little bit of time yesterday sightseeing around Juneau, out to the Glacier, of course, and we both read the same Harvard Business Review article about 10 years ago-ish. He was getting his MBA, and I was working here at JEDC. And the title of the article was Shared Value, How to Reinvent Capitalism and Unleash a Wave of Innovation and Growth. Of course, that got my attention and read that very carefully. So we're excited that Nikhil is here to give us an update over 10 years and to focus on the Purpose Playbook. Please join me in welcoming Nikhil Bumb.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, JEDC and the university for having me here. All right, I'm just going to hold it. Very happy to be here with you all. It's my first time in Alaska, and I am absolutely stunned. So excited to get to know you all a little bit more these coming few days. I actually did go out and get a haircut, so I looked a little bit more like my photo before coming here. Sorry. All right. Well, also, can we just give the wonderful musical performers another great hand? I do a lot of conferences, and I've never started one that way, and we need to do more of that, so I really appreciate that. So I'd like to begin my remarks today by also offering a land acknowledgement, and I recognize that we've already done one, but also it's a little bit odd to come into a place as somewhat of a foreigner in more ways than one, without really spending some time, trying to understand the history. So I'll do my best, and pardon my pronunciation, but Gunul Chish, to the Akwán, we respectfully acknowledge the Akwán Tlingit people as the original owners and inhabitants of the Juneau area. Gunul Chish, to the Takoquan Tlingit people, whose ancestral homeland surrounds the Taku River and the southern areas of Douglas Island, which today is part of the city and borough of Juneau. We are grateful to be here in your ancestral homeland as we come to you from areas of Alaska and beyond. So if you'd allow me, I'd like to briefly pause and reflect on what we just did. In my experience, I know that Alaska land acknowledgements have probably been a little bit more common practice than in other places in the United States, but I've seen an uptick of land acknowledgements in the past 3 years as a way of beginning meetings, gatherings, and conferences. And they're really intended to recognize the indigenous ownership of an area, as you all know, and the special relationship that Native peoples have with, and they maintain with, their land. But I find that when done without proper reflection or followed up without other actions, they kind of feel hollow, or they can. They feel quite performative, like just a statement. And, as was said much more eloquently than I would, before, it's really about going beyond that. It's meant to be much more than just a statement. It's a tool for healing, for starting a conversation, for reconciliation between our communities, and a reminder of where we are, what's come before us, and a prompt to enter that space with a little bit more humility and respect than we may have otherwise. And I'm on my own learning journey as well when it comes to understanding Indigenous history, both in the US and beyond, and the intensity of trauma that's been suffered by Native peoples around the world. So with that in mind, I'd like to ask you all to keep a few of these things in mind over these next 2 days as we talk about the role of purpose in business and how it can help companies be a powerful force for good. Much like land acknowledgements, you have to go beyond a statement. You have to use it as a place to start, to go further. And you have to start by trying. A statement itself is not enough. So we started by paying respects to the heritage of this land that we are gathered on. If you'll allow me, I'd like to next share a little bit about my personal purpose and my story and what brings me here to you. I'm sure you're wondering, why am I in front of you talking about purpose besides, the fact that Brian asked me to, and JEDC brought me here. So though I was born and brought up in the United States, as you probably guessed, my heritage is not originally from the United States. My story actually begins with my parents. And all right, there we go. My parents are both from Rajasthan, the state in northwest India that you'll see in blue on the screen in front of you. And Rajasthan is India's largest state by area, and roughly 40% of that state is desert, which, as you can imagine from an economic growth perspective, provides a pretty rough terrain. Both my parents come from smallholder farming families. My dad is from a very small village where he and his brother were the first to go beyond 8th grade. And my mom is from a small town where she was the first woman to go to college, and she eventually studied science. They migrated to America before I was born, but they made a point of making sure that we always maintained a connection to our roots. Growing up, my siblings and I would spend every other summer living for almost 3 months with our relatives in these small towns and villages in India. And on the screen, you can see a few pictures from my mother's hometown from one of my recent trips to India. So fast forward, I studied electrical engineering with a focus on biomedical applications. After grad school, I was working as a consultant helping life science companies with commercial strategies. In early 2011, I got news that my best friend in India, someone who I considered an older brother, passed away unexpectedly. He had been throwing up uncontrollably, and was taken to a local hospital near his village. He was treated, he recovered, and was about to be discharged when he suffered a heart attack. And due to staff and equipment shortages in the hospital, he died before a doctor or any medical staff could get to him, despite being in the hospital. He was just a few months past his 24th birthday. As you can imagine, this news hit me pretty hard. I was helping pharma companies, medtech companies, med device companies create strategies that would generate them more profit. But still around the world, there were patients and people who lacked access to basic health. And even when they had access to health, it wasn't really quality health care. It wasn't that my clients didn't care about these patients or underserved communities, but they weren't actively factoring them into creating their strategies. And as a result, they weren't reducing any of these challenges that we see around the world. And forget these companies, neither was I as I was advising them. So I pivoted, and I decided to focus my career on thinking about how companies can intentionally address social issues through business strategies. What would it look like if the companies, the systems around us, worked for us, worked for the people and communities, rather than the other way around? And if you ask me how I describe my personal purpose, That's what I would say. I've spent the past a little bit more than 11 years focused on this, thinking about the intersection of business and society. I've done this inside of companies as well as externally as an advisor, and I've done it around the world, not just in the US, but in Europe, in Africa, in South and Southeast Asia, as well as Latin America. And for the past 6 years, or a little bit more than 6 years now, I've been with FSG. We are a nonprofit. Our mission is focused on what we call equitable systems change. How do we shift the systems around us to create outcomes that are better for all people? We were founded in 2000, a little bit over 2 decades ago, by Harvard Business School professor Michael Porter and Mark Kramer. And I'll say when we started, we may not have had as much of a sharp focus on equity, but it's really been over the last decade a journey for us. And we partner with companies, we partner with foundations, also some nonprofits and governments on these strategies for social change. I have the good fortune of helping lead our corporate practice in the US. So that's just a little bit about myself, who we are. Now let's dive in, and hopefully by the next 40 or so minutes, you all will walk away with a slightly better understanding, or maybe reinforcement of your understanding of purpose, but what we also think makes a corporate purpose worth having. And then how can that purpose turn out to be a source of competitive advantage for you? And then I hope I'll share some examples that you'll also walk away with some innovative ideas for how you might advance your company's purpose through shared value, and explain that concept as well. So as kind as Brian was to invite me here, and JEDC was, I don't like hearing myself talk the entire time, so I'm going to ask you all to again participate in a poll. So if you can go again, pull out your cell phones, and I want to just hear, how do folks define purpose? And maybe I'll ask Gabe if we can actually have the results pop up as it's live. So same number to text, 22333, and text 111732 space, and then your response. All right, mission. I won't read them all. Great. Reason for being. What are you working or living for? Value-driven objective. I like that. Intention behind an action. All right. Let's get a few more responses. Infusing ethos into planning and action. A reason for working. Reason for being. All right. Great. Okay, I can tell you all did the reading or already spend a lot of time thinking about purpose. So this is wonderful. You all are defining purpose really well. So if we can switch back, at FSG, we define purpose here as a company's reason for being that simultaneously helps solve a societal problem and create significant financial value for the company. Yes, it is your company's mission, your motto, what is your ethos. But what we like to make sure that is clear is that we intentionally name that we're addressing a societal problem, and we're not also shy about the profit motive. At the end of the day, we're still companies, and so how do those things tie together? So the ideas of companies contributing to social issues is not new, but it has definitely evolved over time. Traditionally, companies took what we'd call a blind eye approach to social problems, sort of ignoring them. Over time, they recognized that they can't ignore social problems. They may get called out on them, and problems could harm the company, so it turned into a risk mitigation strategy. Building on that, companies then recognized that they should do something about social problems and turned to formalize those programs into corporate philanthropy, with the objective of using donations to build their reputation. Now, I just want to note here that many companies are still in either the risk mitigation or philanthropy spaces of corporate social impact. Next, companies started moving into what we call strategic corporate social responsibility, or CSR. And that came with the recognition that they can go beyond and amplify the impact they're giving by leveraging corporate assets to address these social or environmental problems. And these are important programs, but still they don't contribute directly to business results, and they don't drive innovation or business value over time. So then we move forward into what we call shared value. As companies lean more into alignment with the business and leveraging their assets, we see them recognize business opportunities in addressing social problems. They move into apply a shared value approach, and I'm going to come back a little bit later to explain that more. Ultimately, though, what the most advanced companies are getting to is a place where we see them more holistically recognize how to address social problems through all of their activities, and that's purpose. The company exists, and you exist, to solve those social and environmental problems. But why should companies care? Why should companies have a purpose? The reality is that the conversation is quite shifting. We've seen that over almost the space of 2 decades, from 1995 to 2016, the public discourse on purpose actually increased by about 5 times, and stakeholder expectations are shifting in many ways. Consumers are a third more likely to buy products or services from a purpose-driven company, and 50% more likely to switch their brand loyalty from one in which they typically buy if they see that a new product has purpose. It's also coming from your employees. Employees are looking for greater meaning for work. I think we all probably know this very well. With a shifting younger workforce and next generation leaders, we're seeing that actually 70% of millennials have stated that a company's commitment to the community and social impact initiatives will influence their decision of where to work. And by 2025, millennials will actually occupy 75% of the workforce. So that's a pretty important stakeholder group to keep in mind and for employers to think about. Communities also need our businesses to do better. The Edelman Trust Barometer, Edelman puts out an annual report where they talk about trust in different institutions. And for the past 5 years, trust in the private sector, trust in businesses, has surpassed trust in any public or other institution. And that's saying something. So the public actually wants companies to do more to address societal problems, whether we talk about economic inequality, climate change, and they also know that companies have the resources to do so. The Brookings Institute recently released a report that the private sector invests about 5 times the amount the resources that the public sector does in innovation every year. And when you compare the private sector to nonprofits, it actually gets far more. It's 30 times the amount of resources that are being dedicated towards innovation. So this notion that nonprofits or the government who should be solving social issues is actually not well set up because they don't have the resources, their same level of resources to address them. And that investment in innovation is growing at a much faster pace in the private sector than it is in either of the public or the social sectors. And finally, a group that's very important to any business, your investors. Investors are making their voices heard, and part of this is due to the large wealth transfer that is on the horizon from the baby boomer generation to millennials, and we know that those have different investment priorities. And it's not just from that generational transfer, but as you all may be aware of, in 2018, Larry Fink, the CEO of the largest asset manager, BlackRock, in the world, he released a letter to CEOs calling on companies to step above just traditional corporate social responsibility or giving and to really serve a social purpose as a business imperative. And so in his note, in his letter, he said, without a sense of purpose, a company, either public or private, cannot achieve its full potential. It will ultimately lose the license to operate from key stakeholders. So that's pretty powerful. Just think about that, not having the license to operate from your basic stakeholders. And another reason why investors care is that the data is showing that high purpose brands actually have higher financial performance. So this data in front of you is from a study that was conducted by CECP and Fortuna Advisors. And they used 13 attributes to score companies on a scale of 0 to 100 from a bucket of low to high segments. And what you see is that high purpose brands outperform financially on return on capital, on valuations, on value creation, and total shareholder return. Without a purpose beyond profits being demanded of corporations from all corners, it's not a surprise then that business leaders are also taking a note. So there was a survey conducted in 2015 of 474 executives, and there was strong agreement that purpose matters. you'll see some of these things, some highlights from the survey. 89% believe that an organization with a purpose will have higher employee satisfaction. 84% believe that it affects their ability to transform, and they'll have greater success at business transformation if they do it by grounding in a purpose. And 80% believe that an organization with shared purpose will have greater customer loyalty. But moving from a purpose to actually doing something about it in your operations doesn't have quite the same piece. Despite the clear belief in the value of purpose, the same executives are also challenged with embedding purpose in their organizations and bring it to life through their strategy, their operations, or their people. Only 37% agreed that their business model and operations were actually aligned with their purpose. That's pretty dramatic and telling. And that's because many times companies respond by just creating purpose statements, but they stay there as just statements. So I have here a couple of anonymous purpose statements from different companies. And I just want to see from the audience, what do you think of these purpose statements? Just shout it out. Bland, generic, unactionable. All right. Yeah, you're right. None of them are clear. They don't really tell you anything. They're not serious. They kind of just feel, again, hollow. Just words, just a statement. So we wanted to go a little bit further then and say, well, what actually makes a purpose worth having? And so as we characterize it, there are 4 key attributes. First, a purpose should be significant. It should make a meaningful contribution to an unmet social or environmental need. A good way that many companies think about that is by aligning to one or multiple of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. You can also think about what your local community needs. The second attribute is that it should be authentic. It should really reflect the company's core values and history. You can't just have a purpose that's about something that doesn't reflect where you've come from. The third one is that it should be profitable. It should drive measurable value for your company. And the last one is that it should be serious. It should really drive decision-making and action of employees at every level of your company. Definitely your leaders, but really all throughout your company. All right, so think about these 4 attributes. And I'd be curious from you all, either from your own experience, for another poll, either from your own experience or from just thinking more broadly, which of these do you think is the hardest for companies to actually act on? So we're again gonna pull out our phones and do, I promise this is the last one, another poll, at least from me. I don't know what others have planned. And text one of these codes for the one that you think is the hardest for companies to do to 22333 again. All right. We have a decent amount of results coming in. I'm going to let it get to about 50 or 60, and then I'll ask Gabe to switch it over. Okay, maybe we can switch to the responses now. Oh, wow. All right. So everyone thinks it's, there seems to be overwhelming agreement that being authentic is the hardest. There's actually not necessarily one right or wrong answer here, but I would say that in our experience, authentic and serious tends to be where companies get tripped up the most. Both because, again, as we talked about, purpose often just is a statement, and it's easy to apply your purpose in marketing efforts or recruiting, but how do you think about translating it to then the rest of your operations and your strategy? So let's start talking about some of these examples. So if we can switch back to the slides. All right, great. So I tried to find some local any Alaska example. Just picked a few. Let's start with significant, making a contribution to a social or environmental need. Alaska Airlines, airline company, started in Alaska, has several societies that they want to address through purpose. And some of those are, they focus on reducing their environmental impact and building stronger communities through action. So those are some clear, unmet, or not fully met yet societal needs. Next, authentic. So another local Alaska example, and I really like this one because for the past decade, Sealaska Corporation has been on a very comprehensive journey to be much more purpose-led and to seek opportunities to create shared value. And several things stand out about Sealaska, but for the purposes of time, I'm going to just highlight a few things. One, you all have a clear purpose. It's right there on their website. We believe a better future, one in which both people and the planet thrive, is within reach. Feels very actionable, it's clear. And they also don't shy about talking about their business mandate. They clearly state that they serve twin goals of both economic prosperity and environmental protection. And actually, I just pulled this image from their website. And what probably stands out the most to me, though, in terms of being authentic, is that their purpose is clearly grounded in and resonates with Indigenous values and how that drives economic value for the company while protecting the earth. And I think it's a really strong example that actually many other companies around the world should learn from about having an authentic purpose. Moving on, our third attribute was profitable. Patagonia is a great example of a company with a profitable purpose, even though they actually sometimes try not to make it so profitable. And I see many of you here sporting Patagonia gear. They have said that they're in business to save our home planet. So there's a clear commitment to finding solutions to environmental problems. And that's actually consistently led them to having a direct increase in revenue, even sometimes when they encourage customers to consume less. So you may all recall in 2011, they had a Don't Buy This Jacket campaign, and it actually led to a 30% increase in their sales. In 2016, their pledge to donate Black Friday proceeds to environmental NGOs garnered a record $10 million in sales, which was 5 times more than expected. So your purpose can be quite profitable. And now the last one that is also hard for companies is being serious. So here I'm going to draw on the example of Juneau. It's often really hard for companies to make some tough decisions about existing business practices that can be in conflict with their company's purpose. We call these purpose negative activities. So they're often purpose positive activities, things that clearly are contributing to your purpose. Purpose neutral activities, you can't really tell if they go either way. And then there's purpose negative activities. Juneau's commitment to healthy lives and promoting well-being at all ages is not just reflected in its history, but also some of its more recent decision-making. In the late 90s and early 2000s, they began systematically divesting from their meats, cheeses, and sauces business lines, some of their most profitable business lines, and investing instead to expand their core businesses of dairy, beverages, cereals, and in ways that not just increased nutritional value, but also accelerated development in underdeveloped areas of Africa supply chains from. So that's a real example of a company being serious about it, making decisions to move business units that weren't in line with their purpose. So when done well, then we see that companies not just create value for a range of stakeholders, that's part of being responsive to those stakeholder expectations, but they also capture both direct and indirect value from 6 different stakeholder groups. The 3 on the left are probably the ones that we all most commonly think about when we think about companies. We think about your customers, we think about your employees, we think about your investors. We sometimes think about the 3 on the right, but honestly, they get not as much attention, thinking about the community, the government, and other partners. And all of these are important sources of values, as well as who companies should be thinking about they also need to create value for. And that helps them deliver on the promise of their purpose. There's no magic formula to becoming a purpose-led company, but most organizations that are grounded in a purpose that includes social and environmental benefits, in addition to profit, have policies, programs, and practices that support their efforts towards their purpose potential. We call this the purpose portfolio. There are a range of ways in which companies actually engage with societal issues and deliver on their purpose. And you can see those around this, around the purpose wheel that or the purpose portfolio. Among these, however, we believe that one of the more powerful practices for companies to be purpose-led is shared value. And we briefly talked about this earlier. And we advocate that it should actually be one of the primary elements in a purpose portfolio to drive the most significant impact to society. It's a very powerful practice that actually helps companies fulfill their purpose aspirations because it uses that core business strategy, and it helps companies really live into that authenticity or that serious attribute that we talked about earlier. So whether it's addressing protracted social issues such as access to medicines, employment opportunities, improved agricultural techniques, or targeting environmental opportunities such as the new uses for recycled plastics, zero deforestation practices, renewable energy sources, shared value offers companies new ways to innovate, compete, and create a business environment that is sustainable. It also allows them to do so at scale, and while significantly addressing these challenges. But it's important to remember that shared value is not philanthropy. It's not donations. It's not corporate social responsibility. It really is sort of unabashedly also about economic success, innovation, and driving growth. Not about sharing or redistributing that pie, but really expanding the pie. And one of the key pieces about shared value is that it creates, therefore, a competitive advantage for your company. And it does so by creating a virtuous cycle. First, by innovating to solve a social issue, companies are generating a social impact, but they're also then using that to drive business impact and create business value. You can then use that business return, whether it is increases in revenues or reduced costs or some combination of both, to actually reinvest in a way that allows you to, as a company, scale those practices and scale your organization and grow. And that is a virtuous cycle. You feed that back into creating more social impact and more business value, and ultimately continue that cycle over and over. And that is what makes companies more competitive and be able to have a distinct advantage from your peers who are not doing so. It generates a return and an incentive to scale. And when we talk about shared value, we talk about it at 3 levels. The first level is reconceiving your needs, your products, your consumers. How do you think about your products and services differently and meet either underserved markets or actually new markets that you may not be serving right now? The second way is then redefining productivity in your value chain. Think about how you might look for efficiencies in your supply chain by also solving social and environmental issues. A lot of sustainable supply chain practices fall into this category as well. And the third one is actually thinking about the broader business environment that you operate in as a company. There are things in that broader business environment that may be preventing you from actually either addressing a social issue or scaling as a company, and oftentimes both. And so if you can think about investments to improve that local environment, that can help you as an organization actually then advance your, not just solve a social need, but also advance your own growth and your scale as well. I want to reposition those because these levels actually overlap and reinforce each other. So another way that we like to depict this is through concentric circles. So think about it in this way. Companies often start with the innovative products and services. What's a new product I can offer to address this social need? But they realize that they actually then can't necessarily deliver that, because if it's a new market, they need new distribution channels, they need to understand some other ways, and there may be blockages in those ways. So then you look towards value chain innovations, and that's that second level of shared value that we talked about. And as you think about going there, then you also realize that there may be other barriers in the system that are preventing you. Those are the ones that we talked about in that third level of shared value, the ecosystem pieces. What's happening in the operating environment, in your business environment, things around community norms or policies that may be in place. There may be infrastructure challenges. So how can you invest in those, often in partnership with others, to actually then make it a better environment for yourself, but you're also probably making a better environment for others while also solving that social need. All right, we've talked a lot in theory, and I want to give you 2 examples, and I promise I'll stop talking at you and open it up for questions as well. I want to mention Enel. How many of you have heard of Enel? All right, I see a few hands. I hadn't heard of Enel either until we started working with them. So Enel is a global energy company. They're actually founded in 1962 as Italy's national electricity provider. And they are now a global company that generates and distributes electricity in over 30 countries and then across 5 continents. In 2019, they were the largest private network operator in the world and the world's largest player in renewables. They're headquartered in Rome. And they have a workforce of more than 68,000 people serving more than 74 million users globally. Now, Enel has done a number of things that are both purpose and shared value driven. And they're also activating on their purpose through levers as well. For example, their executives and their managers accountable through performance objectives about meeting both environmental and business objectives. But what I want to talk about is their open innovation platform. As they were thinking about climate change and the just transition, and shifting their portfolio, thinking about new products and in a rapidly changing world with all the different stakeholder expectations that we talked about, they realized that they weren't innovating fast enough within their workforce. They were coming up with new ideas, but not at the pace to meet the commitments that they had set about their own transition. And so what they did is they launched an open innovation platform. They created this digital platform and invited their partners in their supply chain, as well as the communities that they serve, to participate, to help them source ideas, source innovations, and they use that as a way to actually then bring in peers and partners as co-creators, and expand it. And not just expand it in terms of the services they were offering, but also expanded in terms of the geographies that they were reaching. It became a source of innovation for them in products and in the value chain. And as it scaled, it caught steam and the eye of actually the public sector as well. And so they started partnering and participating in this open innovation platform, as well as nonprofits, and saying, hey, how can we also be a part of the solution? We're facing some of these same challenges as we think about meeting environmental sustainability objectives. So it really widened then to reach that third level as well. So what that means is that when you get really successful at this, you may start by really thinking about a product, but that virtuous cycle that you see ends up happening at all of those rings, all pieces of the concentric circles. You start with the innovative products and services, create a virtuous cycle. You start reaching out into your value chain. That creates a virtuous cycle as well, enables you to scale further, and it enables you to actually meet some of those lofty ecosystem pieces that feel out of your reach by bringing in and working with your partners. It not just creates value for you as a company, but it creates value for your communities, and it creates value for those partners. So, one more example, and then I'm done. I want to talk about Fibria. Fibria is another company that FSG has worked with. They're a Brazilian pulp production company. And at the time that FSG worked with them, they were a world leader, or they were the world leader in eucalyptus pulp production. It's a pretty specific business area. And since then, they have been acquired from Suzano, and Suzano describes their purpose as "we plant the future." They strive to meet in a sustainable manner the growing global demand for forestry products. Now, I share this example because Fibria was facing a number of problems related to their purpose and their business. One of the big ones that they were facing was wood theft. So in the communities where they operated, they were having their wood supply regularly stolen. In 2009, it actually cost the company $20 million. And almost annually around that time, they were losing $20 million because of wood theft. Not just was the revenue loss, but it was also creating tensions with their surrounding communities. Because of that theft, it led to increases in crime, safety concerns for community members, and of course, they were also thinking about the environmental impact of their business then of sourcing more wood to replace that. So here's one example of how they responded. They realized that people were turning to the wood theft because it was in the absence of other economic opportunities. So they engaged their community members to ask how this impacted them, understand the other ways that it was affecting the community. And they also asked the community to help them think about what could be done to change the situation. The community wanted to return to their agricultural roots of their grandparents and ancestors, but many of them had left agriculture to pursue other opportunities in mining or charcoal. And so what Fibria did is they created the Rural Land Development Program, PDRT, and it was really to help the local farmer associations and bring people back to agriculture, make agriculture more exciting, more incentivized to actually come back to it. And they saw that the community responded. People left their jobs, primarily in the charcoal industry, and shifted back to agriculture and their roots. And in doing so, this created a stronger partnership between the community and the company. So once where there were tensions, they were now working more hand in hand in partnership. By 2016, so remember in 2009, it was costing the company, what did I say? I think $20 million a year. By 2016, they were working in over 50 communities with this program, and wood theft had declined by 90% from those 2009 levels. So in just 7 years, that's a dramatic shift. And it's an example of FIBRA recognizing the link between business challenges and the social and environmental issues that surround the company's operations. By addressing the root cause of wood theft, a lack of alternative economic opportunities, FIBRA made a meaningful difference in the lives of their community members and also enhanced their own competitiveness and profitability. But it didn't stop there. It actually set the company up for the future. So post-acquisition, Suzano built this program and their community relationships. And at the start of the pandemic, Suzano, along with one of their main partners, Stora Enso, who had these deep community relationships, these community relationship managers as well, they were able to leverage this model of engagement to quickly sense the needs of their communities as we were all entering the world in 2020 with the pandemic. And they shifted both their employment practices to better support the communities, as well as their community giving programs to respond to the immediate needs such as PPE or other basic supplies for these communities. And therefore also not just for the immediate future, but securing their longer term future as well. So what this example, and one of the reasons I like it, is because while a very niche industry and in an area that you might think might be challenging, it demonstrates that purpose and shared value can not just provide competitive advantage at that immediate moment, but also really set up companies for the long term, to be resilient, to think about their own sustainability, and to think about their growth. So I'm going to pause there. I don't know how long I've been going, but Brian will keep me on time. And maybe 5-10 minutes for questions?
Yes, and if you have a question, you come up here and you ask it into the mic. Is there another mic? Come on.
Thank you, that was wonderful. Why is it a singular? Why is it shared value, not shared values?
I'm sure Michael Porter and Mark Kramer might answer this differently. But it was really, yeah, so one, we wanted to differentiate from values of a company and really align the fact that both business and social or societal value can be the same. They don't need to be thought about as two separate, and that you have to pursue them through two separate pieces of your organization. Yes. Yeah.
Thanks for being here, Bill Leedy. We have devolved into armed camps based on identification. My group versus your group, that's a bad thing. Is it important that we share a common identification, and should we declare that that's the planet rather than a particular ideology or company or country? Is that at the root of the success of what you're talking about? And if not, why not? And if so, let's get on with it. Thank you.
That's you all don't give me easy questions. My personal take is I think that's a noble aspiration, but I think the reality is that our identities are quite different. Yet, so I don't want to depart from saying that, you know, we all share one common identity, but I do think that there are commonalities in the way we approach and engage with the world. And it's about reconnecting with those and finding those and how those can lead to then working together.
I'm just curious, have you ever worked with any educational institutions?
We have worked with funders of educational institutions, not directly with educational institutions, but would welcome the opportunity. All right, great. Well, I'll just leave you with one thing, or two things maybe. One, businesses can be a powerful force for good, so please remember that. I know you all are thinking about that, and it's happening. It's happening in, you know, you all are doing it. It's happening in the Alaskan community, and then the other piece is, you know, it's about getting started and putting it into practice. So tomorrow we're going to have a session on the Purpose Playbook and actually applying those practices and getting to your own businesses. So, thank you. Thank you.
Cheat.
Excellent. Yes, thank you. Thank you to Nikhil for that new perspective on economic success in our modern world. We are going to go into a networking break, but before we do that, a couple of things for you. First things first, we got one more poll everywhere question. If I could get that up on the screen. So yes, you guys all ready. It's a quick group. Everyone's reaching for their phones. I love it. So what is the best way to earn local dollars? And just as before, you'll text this to 22333. Text your choice. While those results are coming in, I will also remind everyone, pitch contest tonight. Yes, you remember you all get one complimentary vote right there in your little lanyard. So remember, you can buy additional votes during our break up top in the next to the registration table. Let's see how many we got. Okay. Yeah. Oh, great question. So local dollars, you load money into the local frequency app. And again, just to remind everybody, local frequency information. I love this question. Yes. Up during our networking break, please visit our local frequency table to learn more about the JEDC created app, local frequency. And that's where you load local dollars. It's a great way to discover new local businesses. And there are shopping and cash incentives to shop at those local businesses. So that's what we mean when we say local dollars. So I got almost 30 results. So let's see them. Let's see the results on the screen. What does everybody think? This feels like a win-win-win to me. Excellent. Load local dollars from your credit card and shop with local dollars. Great.
And that's a good answer, but the bottom one is the best way to maximize your reward.
Yeah.
So you're just going to have to learn more.
Multiple breweries in town doing that. Shout out. Great businesses to support. Okay, so networking break, and I don't know about you guys, it's sometimes helpful to have a little direction. This is about networking after all. So let's talk about an activity we're calling building a hive. So at your table, talk amongst yourselves until you find a common denominator. And we need something out of the ordinary here, not like we all have hair. Something exciting. Sorry about that. Yeah, somebody had to take that. Once you've found your common denominator, you are that team. So, bald guys unite. That could be a team. For instance, you might be we've all been to a formal event in Extra Toughs team. I mean, that could probably be the entire room, but that's just an example. Once you have your team, start circulating and look for others who share that common denominator. So when you find them, invite them to join your group. So please go forth and find somebody with what you have in common and be back here at 3:15 for our UAS Northwest Coast Arts presentation. 3:15.